Bava Metzia Pei Gimel Amud Bet. Okay, so this is the moment that we've all been waiting for. By that I mean I've been waiting for. But there's four daf now in Bava Metzia. Pei Gimel to Pei Zayin, which is just straight Agadata. So B'ezrat Hashem will be spending a few weeks on these dafim, and it's stories, and there's a lot to talk about. Some stories are well known, others are less well known. What we're going to talk about this week is basically it's a new parak. The parak starts with the Mishnah. There's a very short Gemara, and then it jumps right into the Agadata for daf. So we're going to learn the very beginning of that series of Agadata. I want to focus actually on a couple of chidushim that I have on the very beginning, which is more of a traditional kind of just drasha, but then it tells a story about the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, who was with him in the cave, and it tells a story about him that we'll learn, and then we'll go back and analyze the drasha from the beginning, and if there's time, maybe also a couple of chidushim on the story as well, but we'll see how long it takes us. Okay, the drasha that we're going to be talking about is from Barchi Nafshi, which we're all familiar with, and in particular, it'll be talking about an analogy that's common in Chazal, which is kind of taking day or yom or light to be olam haba, and then nighttime to be olam hazeh, and we'll see some ideas based on that. Okay, so the Gemara of Metzia Daf Pei Gimel Amud Bet, the Agadata begins as follows: Darash Rabbi Zera, v'amri le'etani Rav Yosef, Mai dichtiv tasher choshech v'hilayla bo tirmos kol chayto ya'ar. So why does it say in Barchi Nafshi Tehillim Perek Kuf Daled? So you bring nighttime, you bring darkness, and it's nighttime, and at that time, all of the beasts of the forest start crawling around. So tasher choshech v'hilayla ze olam hazeh shedome lalilah. So when it says that you bring nighttime, that means this world, which is compared to night. Bo tirmos kol chayto ya'ar. So what are the beasts of the forest that crawl around in olam hazeh? Elu rishayim shebo. That's the wicked in this world. Shedomin l'chaya shebiyar. We'll talk about why specifically rishayim are compared to animals in the forest. That's a continuation of Barchi Nafshi. Right, the sun, after it's nighttime, then the sun rises, and they gather in, and they go and crouch in their caves. So when the sun of the tzaddikim rises, so the Roshim get gathered in to Gehenom. And then they crouch in their caves, or they go to their places. In Olam Haba, every tzaddik has a place that's set for him. He has his own kind of Yerusha in Olam Haba based on his kavod, based on his mitzvot. Yetzei Adam lefoalo, and the psukim conclude. So a man goes out to his work. Yetzu tzaddikim lekabel scharan. So tzaddikim in Olam Haba they'll get their reward. And in the evening. So what does that mean? So we'll see that means someone who finishes his work at night, night being when he dies, or erev being when he dies, that someone is a tzaddik when he dies gets to inherit olam haba, but not if he's not when he dies, and we'll see Gemara Kedushin that elaborates on that. Okay? Now the story. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, eshkach lehu par hagvana tehatafes ganave. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's son, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, one time he found an officer who was arresting thieves. Amarle said to him, Heichi echlatlu, how are you able to arrest them? Lav kechevata mitile, are they not compared to wild animals? Dichtiv bo tirmos kol chayto yar. So this is the connection between the previous Gemara and this one. So aren't Rishaim, or thieves or Rishaim, compared to wild animals? And some say that he said to the officer from this pasuk, that he lies in ambush like a lion. Anyways, maybe you're arresting righteous people and you're letting the thieves go free. How do you know who to arrest and who not to arrest? So Amarle, the officer, said to him, it's the royal decree. I have to do, this is my job. I'm the officer. I have to arrest thieves. I have a quota to fulfill.
Just following orders.
Yeah, just following orders, exactly. So Elazar Rabbi Shimon said to him, Ta ag merach hechi te'avid. So he said, come here, I'll tell you how to find the right people. Ul be'arba shay lechanuta. So in the 4th hour of the day, let's say around 10 in the morning, go to the shop, and it means like a bar, Ki chazid inish shate chamra v'kanakit kasa biyade v'kaminamnem. And you'll find there are people who are drinking wine, they're holding an empty cup in their hand, and they're nodding off. Okay?
Happy hour.
Sorry? Happy hour, right. The 4th hour of the morning, exactly. So, shali lave. So sit down and start, chatting them up, saying, what's going on. So it might be that he'll tell you I'm a Torah scholar, and it's because I woke up so early to learn Torah that now I'm taking a break. I'm taking a nap, okay? Or maybe he's a worker who had to wake up really early, and now he's taking a break. Or maybe he worked at night, and now this radode raded, it's not clear what it means. Rashi says it means he dealt with wires. Not really sure what that means, but the idea is he was a Torah scholar, and then he has an excuse for being there, or he was just a worker, and he has an excuse for being there. But if he's neither of those, then he's a thief, and then you should arrest him. Okay, so that's Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon's advice to this officer. Ishtema milta be malka. So the word of this got back to the royal palace. Amru, so they said, Karyana digarti ihu lehave parvanka. So let the one who reads the igeret, like the message, let him now be the messenger. In other words, okay, if you know what to do, so why don't you do it, right? So Itavi Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. So Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon then became appointed by the royalty to be in charge of arresting thieves. So he started to do that. He started to go out and arrest thieves. Shlach le Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. So then Rabbi Shua ben Karcha sent a message to him and it said, Chometz ben yain. What does that mean, Chometz ben yain?
Spoiled.
Yeah, Chometz being like vinegar.
Yeah, that comes from wine, like moving it out.
Right. Well, but what could Rabbi Shua ben Karcha be saying? Why is he saying Chometz ben yain?
Meaning his father was not Chacham, but he's now...
Right. In other words, Chomet, like vinegar, son of wine. In other words, your father's Rosh Shimon Bar Yochai, so he's like fine wine, and you're vinegar. He's insulting him. Okay. Why? Ad matai ata moser amoshel. Okay, this is Shemus. Ad matai ata moser amoshel Eloheinu le'hariga. In other words, who is he arresting? He's arresting Jews. So Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says to him, "Why are you now acting in service of?" Yeah, it's like the capo, exactly. L'havdil. How long are you going to turn over Jews to the Gentile government? Shlach le, so Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon said back to him, Kotzim ani mechalem min hakerem. I'm removing thorns from the vineyard. What does that mean?
Riffraff.
Yeah, like even amongst the Jews you have thorns, and I'm cleaning it so that the vineyard can grow and blossom, right? And it's just because it's amoshel aleinu doesn't mean that there isn't pruning to be done. So what does Rabbi Shua ben Karcha answer him? Shlach le yavo ba'al hakerem v'chalet kotzav. So let the owner of the vineyard come and clean the thorns, which means, right, Hashem will take care of, will make sure that the Rishaim get their due, that these thieves get their due. But you don't have to do his job for him.
Like based in a Jewish society.
Perhaps, right. Yes, very good. Rather than Gentile government that you're in the service of. Yep, very good. Okay? Good, so we have a bikoret here from Shua ben Karcha, okay? Then the story continues. Yom achad paga be'ahu koves. So one day, a launderer encounters Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, I guess when he's out on patrol. Krai chometz ben yain, and he insults him with the same insult as Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. Amar, so Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon said, Mid chatzif kulehai shmamina rashiyahu. So since this launderer is so chutzpedek, he must be a rasha. Amar lu tifsua. So he said, arrest this man. Okay? Tifsua. So they arrested the launderer. Levata denach da'ate azal batre lefarokei v'lo matze. So after Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon calmed down, and he must have gotten upset that this launderer, insulted him in this way. But after he calmed down, so he tried to go redeem or to rescue the launderer that he had arrested, but he was not successful. Karyale, so he then applied the following pasuk to the launderer. Shomer pivu l'shono, shomer mitzot nafsho. Now, if you had kept your mouth shut, you wouldn't be in this situation where now you've been arrested. Okay? Zakfua, so they hanged the launderer. Kam tute zakifa v'kabache. Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon stood under the gallows and wept. Right? Why did he weep? Because he felt that he maybe had acted a bit too rashly. So Amarule, they said to him, his students, Rabbi, Al yira beinecha shu b'no ba'alu na'ara me'orasa b'yom kippurim. So don't feel bad because him and his son, they both slept with the betrothed woman on Yom Kippur. So it's good that he got hanged.
Funny the Yom Kippur, okay, so it's like lechol chazir on Yom Kippur, it's not a big deal, it's not food.
Right. Tashmish Hamita. It's the same idea. It's the same idea. Yeah. You're saying it lessens it specifically?
No, it's more.
Right. It's saying, there's a bad guy, right?
Making the statement.
Yeah. Okay. So then what does Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon do? Hiniach yado al b'nei me'av. So he goes like this. Ve'amar, sisu b'nei me'ai sisu. Rejoice, my intestines rejoice. Umas fekot shelachem kach, vadaot shelachem al achad kama v'kama. If when you have an instinct and you're not sure, and you're so on point with your instinct that's doubtful, so the things you're certain of, how much more so? Okay. So he says to his intestines, I promise you, you will never be ruled over by worms and rot. You'll never putrefy because you're so pure in your ability to weed out these thieves. Your gut feeling. But even though he said that to his intestines, he still wasn't 100% at peace with what had happened. So, Ashkiyuha sama deshinta v'ailui leveta deshesha ukrau lekreisei. So he drank an anesthetic drink, like a sedative anesthetic. They took him to a house made of marble and they cut open his stomach. Okay?
What?
He asked for this?
He asked for this.
This is medicine of the time.
Right? And havu mapki mine dikule de tarba. They removed from his stomach bucketfuls and bucketfuls of fat. Umotve b'shimsha b'tamuz ve'av. And they set these buckets out during Tammuz and Av, in other words, in the heat of the summer. Vela misruche. And the fat from his stomach did not putrefy. So then the Gemara interjects in the most hilarious interjection of the story and says, Kol tarba nami la misrach. Which says, what do you mean? Fats never putrefy. So the answer is, Kol tarba ki it be shuryake sumake masrach. So when we say fats don't putrefy, that's not, but fats do putrefy if they have red veins inside them. So what's the miracle, or what's the chidush here? Hacha afal gav diika suryake sumake la misrach. So even though Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon's fats had these red veins, which normally putrefies, unlike fats that don't have these red veins, even for him, it didn't putrefy. And then Karya Nashe, and then Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon applied upon himself the pasuk, Af bisari yishkon lavetach, right? Like my flesh shall dwell securely, in the sense that it doesn't get worms in the heat of the summer. Okay? So this is the story about Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon.
Great course of action to take.
Yeah, so as an aside, by the way, he was in the cave with his father, right? So for 12 years, so it seems to be after, but it's interesting because, and the Gemara is in like that, maybe we'll learn in the coming weeks, he's described as being incredibly obese. Incredibly obese. And we see, this is the first example of how Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon was very big, which is interesting because for 12 years, he lived off water and carobs, right?
Refeeding syndrome.
Too soon. Okay. Yeah. Yes. In any event, so yes, but we see here this is a very interesting story of Elazar Bar Shimon, and Bezat Hashem, there's many more even crazier stories about other Tanaim and Amoraim to come. Okay. So I want to make sure that we cover the first part because I have a couple of chidushim I wanted to go through, and then if we have time, we'll read a couple of the mefarshim on the story of Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. So if we turn the page and start with the Marasha. So the Marasha notes that the drasha of Rabbi Zera skips a pasuk. Okay, so he says Tizach Hashemesh Yasefun Vel Meonatan Yobatzun. והמקרא הבא, תוך כתובים אלו, הכפירים שואגים לטף ולבקש מאל אוכלם. Now, Rabbi Zera, he goes like phrase by phrase and he interprets it, but he skips a pasuk in the middle of his interpretation. So the Marsha says, התלמוד קצר בו, והוא נדרש גם כן בעניין זה. So he says, it's not that Rabbi Zera forgot that this pasuk existed, it's just that, it's summarized, it's not teaching the whole thing, but he's teaching this general idea, and he's skipping some psukim to keep it brief. But you can apply the same theme even to that pasuk in the middle. What does it say? Kfirim shogim lataref, that the lions roar out for meat. So she'arushaim shogim b'mistar v'litrof aniyim. So that means that the wicked, who are compared to these wild animals, so they roar in order to devour the poor, right? Because they're stealing from the poor, or doing bad things to the poor. Kedamaiti be'uvda de Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. And then the Marsha says, as we see in the story that follows Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, that he's coming to stop these wild animals. Okay, Yarov b'mistar ke'aryeh, right? That they hide like a lion. Ve'amar levakesh me'aluchlam, and then it continues and says, and they ask Hashem for their food. So that is shat tzadikim lo bikshu rak aluchlam. So unlike the lions that roar for meat, so the levakesh me'aluchlam is applying to tzadikim who just ask Hashem for their portion. So like shekol shatzmos shel Yaakov lo bikesh rak v'natan li lechem lechol leveged lilbash. Okay, so Masha just kind of closes that gap for us. The Ben Yehoyada asks the question. Right, the drasha is botir moskol chayto ya'ar. Okay, the wild animals of the forest, and the drasha is that they're wicked. So why wild animals of the forest? The Ben Yehoyada says that that's actually dafka. Nir'eli b'siyata d'shmaya the chayot ra'ot ha'olchim b'midbar hen nir'in lekol mirachok uborchin mehen v'nishmarin mehen. So if I see in the distance a wild animal in the desert or something, so then I have time to run away or to avoid it or to hide, because I can see it from far away. Right? So, but if a wild animal is in the forest, so then I'm not able to, I don't necessarily see it. It's able to jump out and surprise me. So it's more dangerous because of that. So that's the comparison to the wicked. Yesh risha'im gmurim v'yiduim. Ume'elu en pachad. So he says, actually kind of ironically, if you have a rasha that doesn't hide, he's very open about his rishut. So in a way, he's less terrifying because this is who he is, and it's out there and in the open, and of course it's awful, but you know what you're dealing with, right? Right? Really, the Rishaim you have to be worried about are the ones who are hiding in the forest, right? The ones who are sneaky and devious and put on a particular face, but they're really, they're not showing you their true motives. Sorry?
Fishing scams.
Yeah, fishing scams. Fish. You're going with the theme of the animals. Fishing scammers, okay? So when I read this Ben Yehoyada, it reminded me of something that we learned a few weeks ago, and it gave me like a chap to something that we didn't quite understand a few weeks ago. You guys remember we learned about, I think it was a few weeks ago, it was last year, sorry. We learned about...
Also a few weeks.
What do you mean?
Last year was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the last, it's the Loazi. It doesn't count. So I do years based on the school calendar year. That's my year. Yeah. So we learned this story, my favorite story in Tanakh, of Elisha was walking along the road one time, and then these children come out from the forest and they tease him for being bald. And then he curses them, and then these two bears come out from the forest and devour the 42 children. Right, and we tied that to his 42 children. Why 42? Because Balak offered 42 korbanot. So because of those 42 korbanot, it led to the disaster of the 42 children. And that was part of this broader theme of Moab and Ammon and okay. Yeah. So I want us to relearn this Gemara in Sota, which actually analyzes that story. So two bears emerge from the forest and maul 42 children. Okay? It's a machloket, Rav Shmuel. And we learned this last year. So one said this was a miracle. Another one said it was a miracle within a miracle. So what does that mean? So the one who said there was a miracle is that Elisha was walking by, there was a forest already there, but then the miracle was that these bears appeared.
This is lo dubim v'lo ya'ar. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that's
I didn't know.
Is that?
What?
There's an expression. Yeah.
Lo dubim v'lo ya'ar.
Is that an expression?
In Hebrew, it means like
What's
nothing.
In modern Hebrew?
Yeah, it's just
Sota mem vav mem bet.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Wow.
What is it? It just means that there's
nothing
nothing.
There's nothing here.
Like what did he say? No, what did he say?
It was the something.
All right, so this is the source.
Something like that, yeah.
Ah,
It's
okay.
not even the smell of what you think, you know.
Okay, so good. Okay, so this is where it's from. Very nice. Okay, so ban damar nes betoch nes. So what is the miracle within the miracle? So it's not just that the bears weren't there, but even the forest wasn't there. So then the Gemara asks the question, right? Veleve dubim velale ya'ar. So according to the one who says the miracle within the miracle, so why do I let the bears appear? What do I need the forest for? And the Gemara answers debiti, right? That they'd be afraid. So last year when we learned this, we saw Rashi. How does he explain? What does that mean? It means that the bears would be afraid if there wasn't a forest there, right? In other words, if the bears would appear, there's no forest, they're like out of their element, and they wouldn't know what to do. That's what Rashi says. They wouldn't like be able to hide and feel comfortable in their habitat. So that's why there was also a miracle to bring the forest. That's his explanation for that. And then we asked last year, didn't really have an answer, but already these bears are everyone. The Chulei Alma, these bears are a miracle. So just make bears that aren't afraid of not being in a forest.
Right,
like, why do you
grizzly.
what?
Make them grizzlies, like they're not scared.
Yeah, exactly. You make them like a grizzly. So what is it? So now, so look at this, right? What is the Ben Yoyada's Chiddush here? He says there's something specific about wild animals from a yar, right? As a so what is exactly? What's the yar? Why is an animal from the yar instead of from the midbar? Because if a wild animal is in the desert, so I'll see it from this is the Ben Yoyada we just learned. I'll see it from far away, and that'll give me enough time to escape or to hide. But the danger of a wild animal in the forest is that it can pounce on you and you don't have time to escape. And that's why the Rishayim that you need to be really afraid of are the Chayto Yar, the wild animals in the forest, because the Rishayim that are Gemurim, so you know who they are. You have enough time to deal with them or to plan for them. But the ones that pounce on you suddenly, you don't. So Debite, I would argue, Rashi says Debite is talking about the bears, right? The bears will be afraid without the forest. But no, it's that the children would be afraid. Because if the bear appears and there's no forest, so then just the bear is there in the road. So it's exactly what the Ben Yoyada describes. Okay, I see a bear from far away, or two bears from far away. So these 42 kids, they'll run away, and the bears won't be able to maul them. So you have to have the forest also, so that the bears can jump out and maul the children before they can run away, because they would be afraid of the bears, and that's why you need the forest, so that they don't have a chance to be afraid, but they get mauled anyway. So the Ben Yoyada in this sugya, commenting on Chayto Yar, can help us unlock a question that we had in the Gemara and Sutta from a totally different shir from last year. That's what? Quite the setup. Quite the setup.
I haven't slept since that.
Yeah. The irony is, I looked at the Ben Yoyada on this Gemara and Sota, and he doesn't say that. He says something different.
Maybe he didn't learn his own.
He didn't learn his own Chiddush. But, fine. He says Debit. He actually says Elisha had servants, and they were afraid. But okay, whatever. It's a similar idea of it's people instead of the bears, unlike Rashi. Okay, so that,
tragedy that we're laughing about over here. Like this is a ridiculous
hilarious.
story.
It's hilarious. It's such
Complete devastation in this village. Like these kids all died in one day, and we're like, very good.
It's very good.
Was it a miracle or two?
Right.
Exactly. Like, 4 kids, 42 families, and like devastated. We're like,
And now it's a phrase. We go around saying "Lo dubim v'lo yar."
But nobody knows that it's from a story like this.
Yeah.
now you're gonna say it every time someone says it.
Yeah.
Oh, did you know?
But they were mean to the bald person. Like you mean to bald people.
Yeah.
What to Elisha?
Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to suggest. Just very briefly, Kiddushin, and then the second Chidush I wanted to do is in the Nafis. But the Gemara Kiddushin Memam Bet as follows. Rav Shimon bar Yochai Omer, Afilu tzadik gamur, kol yamav umarad ba'achrona ibed et harishonot. So if a person is righteous his entire life, but then at the very end of his life he rebels, so he loses the schut of his entire life. Shnamar tzidkat tzadik lo tetzilenu b'yom pisho. The righteousness of a tzaddik will not save him on the day of his sin, meaning the end of his life. And the opposite's true as well. Afilu rasha gamur kol yamav, and we know there's lots of stories about this, right? Someone does tshuva, right? Rebbe famously, he cries and he says a person can spend his whole life in inherit olam haba, and a person can inherit olam haba in a second by doing tshuva right before he dies. So this is what Rabbi Shimon is saying. A person is a rasha his whole life, but he does tshuva, so then his former wickedness is not remembered anymore. So basically, this idea is what, just to kind of clarify, when it says that the tzaddik will inherit his reward in the evening. In other words, only one who is righteous all the way until the Arev, which is the day of his death, which is similar to what Shlomo Mordechai is saying here. Okay, good. I want to now look at the Anaf Yosef, which is in the picture here. Dibur Hamatchil, Ma Dichtiv Tashech Choshech. Okay. Okay, you see it? It's in that first picture. It's the first line on the right in the Anaf Yosef. Okay? I'm sorry if it's a bit blurry. So he says as follows. Vehaven kama nifla ma'amar ze lemi she'ma'amik la'avin bo. Says, see how amazing this teaching is for one who bothers to really try to understand it. Ki hinei choshech halayla shnei minei ta'uyot efshar lo shigrom la'ayin adam. The darkness of night can cause two different types of ta'uyot, not mistakes, but leading a man astray in two ways. Okay, what are they? It could be that it's so dark that he just can't see where he's going, and he can stumble and fall. Or it might be so dark that he thinks he sees something, but he actually is mistaken about what he sees. So he thinks that it's a pillar, but it's actually a person, or vice versa. So it's more that the dark plays tricks on him than that he can't see anything at all. Why is this interesting? So he says, Ken chumriyut v'gashmiyut ha'olam hazeh. So the physical nature of this world is like this. Hinehu choshech kalayla. It is darkness. Ke'ein ha'sechel v'gorem lo shtei ta'uyot. Right? It is a darkness before the intellect. Right? Why is he saying this? Of course, because the whole context here is that the darkness is olam hazeh. That's what Rabbi Zera said, right? The choshech and laila is this world. And he says it's specifically about the physical nature of this world. And it causes these two mistakes. How so? Can't read that word. Meniach lo shir'ei ha'michsholot shebedarchei ha'olam הנמצאים הפתאים הולכים can't read that, לבטח ונופלים ועובדים מבלי שהגיעם פחד התחילה. So the first type of darkness where it's just totally dark, so it leads people to fall suddenly without even realizing, without even having a chance to be afraid beforehand, that they go around in the world, they don't realize that the world is filled with stumbling blocks. So they're going around in the darkness, they can't see anything at all. Okay? On the bottom of the next picture, on the left side, I think. כסיל מתעבר ובוטח כי ליבם בריא להם כעולם ונופלים טרם ידעו מהמכשול כלל. Okay, so they don't even know that they're in they can't see anything, and they can stumble suddenly. Okay, והטעות השני, and the second type of mistake, שהוא קשה מהראשון, and this is important. Okay, the second one he argues is even worse than the first. Right, הוא שמטעה רעייתו עד שרואים הרע כאילו הוא ממש טוב והטוב כאילו הוא רע. Just like a person in the dark might think a pillar is a person, vice versa. A person in this world, true darkness, is being convinced that you know the truth when really you are fully wrong. And you think that evil is good and good is evil. And that has obvious applications for today. And the darkness we see in the world now. So why is it worse? Because a person is stumbling in the darkness. They're stumbling. They're confused. They don't know where they're going. The world is leading them astray, but they don't have this just conviction of something being true that is so false. But this second one is more dangerous because they strengthen themselves and convince themselves and get exposed to social media that makes them feel that they are so absolutely correct in the way that they view the world. Of העולם הזה. כי אין די שחסר מהם ראיית האמת. It's bad enough that they can't see the truth, לראות הרעה אשר נגד פניהם, and that they don't realize the evil that before their eyes. אלא שגרם להם למצוא ראיות גדולות וניסיונות מוכיחים. Right? But they find proofs and they do these logical twists in order to reinforce the worldview that they've built up about why the world is the way that it is, when it's all really founded on a lie and founded on evil. Okay, so first of all, just the way he describes this is really fascinating. You know, we watch these like the debates between the pro-Israel and the pro-Palestinian sides. It's like very, you can see it's we live in a world where truth is, it's not clear what's truth anymore. There's so many different ways to understand. You know, this is a problem in the world today. What he's describing, I think it's very. Yeah, we're living in an Olam HaSheker. And so he's describing there's two types of Sheker. The Sheker where, okay, you don't know where you're going and you think maybe this and it's wrong, but there's a difference between that and having right, of such, without any ability to see things differently. And when I read this on Af Yosef, and this is the second Kiddush I want to offer, this reminded me of two other types of darkness. Anyone else think of other two types of darkness this might parallel?
Yeah.
Like Choshen?
Yeah, you did.
What do you say?
He's
He
right.
wasn't listening, paying attention.
Kol hakavod, Oren. Awesome.
Done.
Makat choshech. Okay, very good. So we look at the famous midrash that Rashi quotes on Chumash, Shmot Rabbah, Perek Yudalid. The Torah describes Makat choshech as choshech afela. So it uses a double language of extreme darkness, similar to by our pasuk in Baruch Nafshi. Right? It said Tasher choshech v'hi lililah. It uses two words. So also by Makat choshech it uses two words. Amar Rabbi Avdimi bin Chaifa. Oto choshech kaful umuchupal haya. It was a double darkness. Rabotenu amru shiv'a yamim shel choshech hayu. There was really 7 days of darkness. Ketzad? How so? Shlosha yamim rishonim. Mi shaya yoshev ubikesh la'amod omed. Right? We all know this midrash. Whoever was sitting and wanted to stand up was able to stand up. Ve'omed bikesh l'shev yoshev. And whoever was standing and wanted to sit was able to sit. ועל אלו הימים נאמר, והיא חושך אפלה בכל ארץ מצרים, 3 ימים, לא ראו איש את אחיו. So they couldn't see, right? It was too dark to see, but they were able to stand up and sit down. If they wanted to stand and they were sitting, they could, and vice versa. But then, 3 ימים אחרים, but the second period of 3 days, days 4 through 6, מי שהיה יושב לא היה יכול לעמוד, והעומד אינו יכול לשב. It was so dark that they couldn't stand up or sit down. ומי שהיה רובץ אינו יכול לזקוף, and whoever was crouching could not stand up straight. עליה נאמר ולא קמו איש מתחתיו 3 ימים. And so a person could not even move. That's how dark the darkness was. So I want to argue that the Anaf Yosef, in his explanation of this Gemara, he says there's two types of darkness. Right? There's a darkness where you can't see where you're going, but you're still. It's not that you're so convinced in your way that you're not able to have your opinion changed. Right? You're still able to be convinced or to be guided in a different direction. It's just that it's too dark, and you don't.
Along the way, and you move around.
And you might bump into things, exactly. But if you're, as it were, sitting, you can stand, which I take as a mashal of, if you have a particular opinion, you're able to be convinced of the opposite of that opinion, right? You're able to move in a totally different direction. It's just a matter of you're not able to see how to do that. But the second period of 3 days, a person who was sitting could not stand. A person who could stand could not sit. And why Mitzrayim? Because what was Mitzrayim all about? That what the Mitzrayim were not able to see, that why did Chazal insert the second period of darkness? Because it's not just it was so dark that they couldn't stand up or sit down, but it means that they were totally unable to see a different reality, namely Ani Hashem b'kerav haaretz, right? That they were so convinced, their hearts were so hardened that it's as though they couldn't stand or sit. They were stuck in their worldview. They were stuck in their perception of the Jews and of the Mitzrayim and all of that. And that's the true choshech afela, and it's kashem harishon. It's even worse because it's not just that they can't see, but that they are so convinced that they can. And that's the danger. And so that really parallels what the Anaf Yosef says. It parallels these two periods of darkness in Mitzrayim and the idea of kaved alev paro as well. And I want to add another potential diuk. If you look in the Midrash in Shmot Rabbah, so when it describes the first 3 days, so it says, whoever could sit and wanted to stand could stand. Whoever was standing could sit. Okay? But then in the second period of 3 days, it says, whoever wanted to stand whoever wanted to stand couldn't stand. Whoever wanted to sit couldn't stand. And then it adds a third phrase, and whoever was crouching could not straighten. So why does it add this additional phrase?
And not the opposite.
And not the opposite.
Unlike the...
Yeah, so what I'm about to say doesn't really explain why not the opposite, but I want to suggest why this additional phrase in the second period of 3 days, because it's emphasis, it's like standing and sitting means I'm not able to see that what I think is 100% true is 100% false. I'm not open to that at all. I can't be convinced, right? The period of first 3 days, I don't know where I'm going, but in theory, if I'm presented with the right, I don't know, logical arguments or influences, then I could go from sitting to standing. The second period of 3 days, I could never do that. But you could say, all right, fine, but someone can maybe be convinced that he's right, but still have within his kind of circle of opinion, still move slightly in one direction or the other. Not that he's going to be totally convinced that the other side is correct, but maybe there's some wiggle room to move him slightly. No, someone who's crouching cannot straighten. There's no, these people are so locked in that they're, even in their own like worldview, even within their own camp, they're so, to the left or to the right that they can't, move
Can
even
they
slightly
do-
along the
Can
spectrum.
they do
That's how dark that
Can they
is.
do this?
Yes. So perhaps that we can take the famous midrash about Makat Choshech, tie it back to the 2 layers of darkness of Anas Yosef when he's being mepalpel on
Could they move
on
their belly,
the
which
double
is
language
basically
of Choshech and Layla.
breathing?
Sorry?
Can they breathe?
Could they breathe? They could breathe, otherwise they wouldn't be able to survive, yes.
But they thought they can't move.
Right. That's a good question. Okay, I guess they can move their lungs. I have some things on the story, but I brought it as like extra credit just because we're already over half an hour, if anyone wants. Otherwise, we can stop here.
And 36
All right, let's quickly just learn one thing from the story, okay?
47 seconds.
Okay, if you go to the... the Maharsha on the first page. Okay, so going back to the story of Arul Shimon, which is a different theme. So there's many details that cry out Darsheni, and there's a lot of Mefarshim on the story. One in particular that caught my eye is it says, Rabbi, don't worry that you condemn this person to death, because him and his son, right, they had intercourse with the betrothed woman on Yom Kippur. So the question is, what does his son have to do with it? Right? Okay, great. What does his son matter? So the Maharsha says, Hizkir lo gam beno, la'agdil avono. So he says, first, it's just to kind of make the sin that much greater, so you throw the son in. Ve'od yesh lomar, he suggests perhaps furthermore, lefi shemiderech kol arguei sarim, the way that anyone in the secular government, if they were killed by the government, gam nichsehem nasarim, so would confiscate their property, and their property would belong to the government. V'imaya lo zera ma'alya v'tov. So if this man had worthy offspring, so Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, even if he found out that this person had done these terrible things and deserved to be hanged, but his son now wouldn't inherit the property, and if the son was a good person, that would be an injustice. Okay? So, Mishum dichtiv yachinu hashav tzadik yilbash kedid b'sof peinah gabe moser la'anazah. So he says that's why we're told that the son was also wicked, so that okay.
Feel bad about him.
He shouldn't feel bad about it. Okay, I'm not entirely convinced. Maybe he had other children, or okay. The Yun Yaakov offers a different suggestion where he says as follows.
I could read that.
Okay, good. Amru in the second picture. Amru le Rabbi Ali Rabbi Enecha, shehu bno b'alei nara murasa b'Yom Kippur. Here the Yun Yaakov, the first line. Okay, I'm b'Maharsha. Delama amru lo. Shigam beno ba'al nar murasa. Ma nafka lemine. What do we care that the son also did it? So he says, V'efshar lomar derech drush. Lefi sheyesh shnei pshatim al mirashaim yatsa rasha. Okay, so there's this phrase that wickedness comes from the wicked. Okay, mirashaim yatsa rasha. What does that phrase mean? Pshat echad. There's 2 ways to understand it. One is shemegalgalim chova elei chayav. Right, this is a famous idea in Chazal that you add guilt to guilty parties, in the sense that אחד שהרג בשוגג ואחד שהרג במזיד, בלי עדים, זה נופל על זה. Right, there's this famous idea that if one person kills by accident, one person kills on purpose, and there's no witnesses, so they get to evade justice, but they have justice min hashamayim, that later one of them will be going up on the ladder and will fall on the other one, and in the end, right, there's karma in the end. So that's what Megal Gidim Chova Chayav means. So you can understand Mirshim Yatzar Rasha in the sense that you can't avoid it forever. So that's one way to understand it. Another way to understand it, Mirshim Yatzar Rasha Kipshuto. What does it mean, Kipshuto? Al pi harov rasha molid rasha. It means literally that wicked people tend to have wicked offspring in general. Whether it's nature or nurture or combination, regardless, that's how things work. And we have this idea that that the positive side is always much greater than the negative side, which means so if a rasha generally gives birth to and has rashaim, so tzaddik generally has tzaddikim. I don't want to get into whether this is true or not true hashkafically in terms of Avraham, Yitzchak, and David and Chizkiyahu. He's putting out here like a potential way to understand this phrase in hashkacha pratit, the way Hashem governs in that sense. So now he says, well, how does this help me? Rabbi Shua ben Karcha deka'amar le chometz ben yain. Okay, when Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says to Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, you're vinegar son of wine. Okay, so the way Rabbi Shua ben Karcha understood this concept is that the wicked will always get punished. So these thieves, they'll eventually get their due. Which is why you don't have to go out and arrest them. Hashem will, like in the story with the ladder, Hashem will make sure that these thieves eventually get punished through whatever machinations of how the world works. You don't have to go and arrest them. And so that's why Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon was upset when the man died, and because it was his fault, and Rabbi Shua ben Karcha didn't understand it like that. But then when they told him, don't worry, this man and his son committed this sin, it means really what is V'shem Yatzar Rasha? It's not that eventually these evildoers, the wickedness will catch up with them, and so you don't have to do anything, but rather that evildoers have evil children. And if that's the case, so, but why does that matter? Because that means also the reverse is true, all the more so. Namely, that a righteous person will have a righteous offspring. So, exactly. So he took solace in the fact that when, and it's brilliant what the Yun Yaakov does here, because he never really has a response to the Chometz ben Yain. Like, Rabbi Shua ben Karcha gets the last word. He says, let the vineyard owner come and prune the vineyard. So when he then is told that him and his son are the ones who did evil, so it's talking about who bno, so the Yun Yaakov notices the whole context of what the launderer said to him, and what Rabbi Shua ben Karcha said to him is, vinegar son of wine. So we're dealing with these like foils of like a father-son, and so it's kind of, he ties it together to say that it was the ultimate closure for Elazar ben Shimon when it was who b'no did the evil. That's why you have to mention the b'no, because he was trying to vindicate and make sure that the fact that he punished the launderer, it was still actually the right thing, and he was really tzaddik and he was acting properly. So there's more to say on this story, of course, but yeah. So.
He didn't take the insult. He said, "No, I'm the tzaddik because I'm the son of the tzaddik."
He was until they told him. Yeah.
He was worried about what Rabbi Shua ben Karcha said and what the launderer said, but then the fact that's why he's like, "May I, sistu v'simchu." You're never wrong, because it vindicated him as not being chometz but being yain ben yain.
There's a lot of color to the story.
All right, shkoyach. Very good, very good. Bezat Hashem, we'll continue next week. Some more stories.